be quiet. Helena Wong, do you wish to speak? President, we are now going through second reading of the Military Provident Fund Schemes Amendment Bill 2019. This is to empower the MPFA to set up a wholly owned subsidiary to set up the eMPF centralized platform that has the function of providing an electronic platform to promote the simplification, standardization, and automation of the MPFA's work procedures. Now, for the entire MPF schemes, this is just a minor technical amendment. Please, members, please be quiet. Please resume. President, in principle, we think that introducing the amendment to set up the centralized platform to a certain extent will help us in a small way. It has functions mentioned by members as referred to as limited. Now, there are some operational improvements to increase efficiency, to reduce administrative fee, to simplify procedures. I think all these are necessary. On the eMPF platform, the purpose is to unify the procedures and reduce administrative fees. The reduction of fees is not large. According to the Bureau of Treasury and Financial Affairs, now in paper transactions are over 65% of the MPF's transactions. There are about 4.4 million scheme members, about 10 million accounts in 28 MPF schemes. There are 14 trustees who operate the schemes or through third parties. So it's quite widely distributed. Different companies have different work procedures and data standards, so there's no uniform standard, and it's difficult to have economy of scale. Now, if the bill is passed and the eMPF platform is set up, then the 12 schemes, the 12 arrangements will be unified under the eMPF platform, and the administrative fee will be reduced to a certain extent. Now, this is to promote wholesale electronic system. So this will be more environmentally friendly. Now, according to the chairperson of the MPFA, Mr. Wang Yaoga, he said in his blog that up to end of December 2019, about 40 to 50% of employers use electronic means to handle the administrative work of MPF schemes, including submission of the payment data and making payments. Now, compared to 2017, at that time, only 20 to 30% of employers use electronic means to handle MPF matters. So after 2 years, there has been some improvement. More employers adopt electronic means to handle staff MPF matters. Now, after the eMPF platform is introduced, we believe that more employers will make use of this electronic platform, so this will help the operations of small, medium enterprises. Now, as for the rest of the platform, now one of these functions, so claimed, is to work towards the removal of the MPF offset and to enable full portability. Now, right now, there would be a 1% per month special contribution for this MPF offset purpose as proposed. So if you implement this platform, this will resolve the offset issue, and this will enable the full portability. So the MPF platform is helpful towards enhancing the entire MPF system. Now, concerning the bill, now after we have the platform, will there be no more follow-up work by the government? I think the government in its response should tell us clearly what follow-up work there would be after the passage of the bill. Now, on the offset of the MPF contributions, now the bill hasn't been yet submitted to LegCo. Now, we don't know how it's going to operate. Now, given the epidemic, there would be greater resistance from the business sector. Now, if the offset can cancellation of the offset cannot be implemented, that would affect the full portability later on. So I don't know to what extent the business sector is against the MPF offset and whether the government is indeed ready to implement the cancellation of that offset mechanism. Now, it doesn't mean that the MPF administrative fees will drop. Now, the MPF scheme system has been in place for quite a while. The assets now it increased from 300 billion in 2010 to 3 times that recently, and the costs only fell from 1.84% to 1.4%, so it's very small. Now, the government imposed the default investment strategy last year, and so it tries to reduce the management fee by that means. But if you compare with the expense rate, that with the ratio of the tracker fund, it's dropped to 0.101% from 0.07%. That's much better. Now, so can we further reduce the expense ratio of the fund companies with the implementation of the EMPF platform? If we look at the past 20 years, if you compare the returns of the tracker fund and the MPF schemes, it's even more saddening. In the past 20 years for the tracker fund, it's about 7.15%, almost threefold over the period. For the MPFA, now the annualized return only 4.1%, 42% increase over the whole period. So it's much smaller than the tracker fund. So if we put all our money in the tracker fund, we would have earned more. Now, of course, there are different categories of funds in the MPF schemes that affects the investment returns. Now, if employees chose stock funds from the year 2000 up to now, the annual return would be 5%. Overall return about 150%. So it's less than the tracker fund, but it's still higher than inflation rate. Now, if employees mainly chose currency funds or other guaranteed funds, then the annualized return would be only 1%, and the cumulative return would only be about 25%. So lags far behind inflation. So with the eMPF platform, apart from the facilitating the payments by employers and the implementation of full portability by employees so that they have more choice, what follow-up measures does the government have to educate the public so that they are more aware of their choices in investment? So you need this education. So apart from the platform, we have measures to facilitate that. Now, we're dealing with only a technical adjustment to the operations with the eMPF platform. Of course, that's better than nothing. Now, the Democratic Party is more concerned about the entire MPFS system. Is it really beneficial to the millions of employees towards their retirement protection? The Democratic Party feels that apart from implementing the platform to deal the administrative fees and speed up the efficiency, the government should once again respond to the public's concern, a major concern about their livelihood after retirement. Now, back in 2011, the Democratic Party already suggests requiring the government to have a universal retirement protection scheme without means test, to have $2,500 to $3,000 per month retirement protection. Now, it's in the prices of those days. Now, we haven't been talking about retirement protection for many years. Now, we all remember Nelson Chow. He's the professor at the University of Hong Kong. He came up with a detailed report. But unfortunately, he made detailed proposals. And apart from Professor Chow, other scholars proposed that we should have a tripartite contribution universal retirement protection system. However, after the proposals are made, the government soon gave up on these proposals by Professor Chow and others. Now, the Democratic Party, a few years ago, we said clearly that we support universal retirement protection, the 2064 proposal by the scholars. Those 64 should receive $3,500. That's at 2016 prices. Now, the Democratic Party hopes that the government should once again take a new look at this. At the time, they were talking about the tripartite contribution arrangement. Existing social welfare spending, including standard CSSA, standard OAA, and OALA should be put into that fund. And the government should also inject $100 billion of seed money into the fund. In that case, we can have a universal retirement protection. Now, the government was very resistant to injecting $100 billion. Now, even made reference, comparison to Mr. Li Ka-shing, so rejected that idea. Now, you have injected over 100 billion, up close 100 to 200 billion dollars into the anti-epidemic effort. So it's just that the government doesn't want to do it. So the Democratic Party hopes the government once again tries to come up with universal retirement protection. Members. Now 25 members have spoken already. This is about the Mandatory Provident Schemes Amendment Bill 2019. This is a technical, some technical amendments. Members have spoken fully on the MPF schemes and the retirement protection. Now we only have today and tomorrow. There are over 10 bills waiting for treatment, so please don't be repetitive. Wan Xiuqin, I hope we should adjourn the meeting for under rule ROP 14(5). Now the secretary told us that on the 8th floor there has been a staff member and and his family members being classified as close contacts. Now, but I don't see any measures being implemented. Now, Professor Yung said that the transmission rate is now 1 person to 4 persons. Now, there are many members of staff and being concerned, so we hope that ROP 14(5) should be used to stop this meeting, adjourn the meeting for cleansing work. I noticed that
there is enhanced cleaning by the Secretariat. Let me get some more information from the Secretariat. Before I get any update, I think that we should continue with the meeting. Let me supplement that members expressed concerns. I won't name names. I don't think if anyone can guarantee that this last council sitting will turn into the talking point of the international community. We all know that the COVID infection situation is rather serious at the moment, but I will have to get more information before we do anything. Mr. Ted Hui, I support Mr. Andrew Wen's point, but please consider this as well. If staff members in this complex is at the moment high risk, then you have to at least assess the risk. What is more important, our health or the lent out tomorrow funding application to the Finance Committee tomorrow? I hope that you should not put politics before anything else. This is about people's livelihood. This is about personal safety. Mr. Wen, well, just to be fair, the Secretariat said that they are dealing with it. Do they do it by way of government standard, that is, to sterilize the entire complex? The information I have is that they only sterilize the 8th floor. I don't understand why they think that the virus will only stay on that floor. Would there be any further sterilization of other places, say, for example, the chamber as well as reporters' areas? Safety and health is one of the factors to be considered. The Secretariat has already given directions to put in place prevention measures and to enhance the sterilization and cleaning of relevant places as well as common areas in the complex. If members have any comments to make, please liaise with the Secretary General. There is no need to have a debate here. I've already made a ruling. Mr. Wen? If it's about specific questions, sorry, speaker is off mic. The speaker is off mic. The speaker's microphone is not turned on. The speaker's microphone is not turned on. The speaker's microphone is not turned on. The interpreter cannot hear the speaker. My ruling is that I'm not going to pause the meeting. The Secretariat will continue to assess the risk in this complex before deciding whether we are going to continue with the meeting. They will consider safety of those who are present. Ms. Wong, point of order, quorum call.
法定人數已夠。
We have a quorum. Members, please return to your seat. Please be quiet so that we can continue with the meeting. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung.
主席，今日我哋要
Madam Deputy, we're here to debate on the Mandatory Provident Fund Schemes Amendment Bill 2019. There are three major areas under this bill. First, to amend the MPF Schemes Ordinance to empower the MPF authority to set up a wholly owned subsidiary company, namely the eMPF platform company, to run a centralized electronic platform to deal with the administration work of MPF schemes. 2. Approved trustees of registered MPF schemes must pay an annual registration fee to be set at 0.03% of the net asset value. The third area is to prohibit trustees from passing on the annual registration fund to the scheme or its constituent fund or scheme members. There are also some related amendments. If we are to talk about the merit or demerit of the amendment bill, we have to look at the ordinance itself. Back in 2000, the Hong Kong SAR government implemented the MPF scheme ordinance. It's been 20 years. The major criticism of the MPF system is the high charges and the poor and the low return. Another criticism is that these trustees are the only party to benefit from the system. For employees, there is little help they get from the schemes. A lot of people dubbed this MPF as a mandatory fund that force you to make contributions. A lot of private companies dealing with the funds would charge a high administration fee and may make risky investments. There is no guarantee return because it is, after all, an investment. From the last government, they've been talking about something. They talk about the abolition of the offsetting mechanism, which is heavily criticized by employees. In the past 20 years, the government try their very best to try to change or improve the image of the MPF so that people will have more confidence of the scheme and may criticize it less. As I said, private companies are involved to manage the schemes. It gives the impression that it tips towards the business sector. The entire system is to rob the poor to benefit the rich. In the end, retirees won't benefit from the system. And indeed, the charges are extremely high. As a lot of members have said, the average expenditure of schemes stands at 1.44%. As at the end of April 2020, the administration fees for majority of the schemes ranged from 0.4% to 0.8%. These costs are management fees and other miscellaneous charges. The index fund, Mr. Leung Yiu-chung, I have reminded other members that this amendment bill is in relation to specified arrangements. You are talking about the overall merit and demerit of the ordinance. Other members have already covered that. I think I can make general remarks and criticisms. I am the deputy chairman. I have the duty to remind you. I'm aware of that. I only have 15 minutes. As I said, as at the end of April 2020, for majority schemes, they charge fees ranging from 0.4% to 0.8%, and it covers management fees as well as other administrative fees. We are aware that the expenditure on charges is lower. For the tracking fund, average expenditure is about 0.1%. We see that for a lot of these MPF schemes, they don't set relative index indicators. It is very difficult for scheme members to gauge whether the investment return is reasonable or not. According to figures provided by the government, currently there are about 4.4 million scheme members involving the administration platform of 12 schemes. Every year, there are about 30 million transactions covering registration, new contributions, and dunning for contributions in arrears. Most of these transactions are dealt with on a paper basis or by checks. The government now wants to run this electronic platform to improve the efficiency of the transactions. It will also facilitate scheme members to transfer their accounts more easily. The operation of the administration of funds will be streamlined and automated and standardized. It is a good thing and should be supported, but I have doubts. The government said that this will provide room for the administration fee to be reduced. If that indeed is the case, we will be more than happy. But according to information paper, while it's true that the administration wants this platform to run smoothly and they want to change the operation from paper-based to electronic in order to improve the efficiency of the operation. But it is, they are rather vague when it comes to room for fees reduction. They have not been concrete or specific about this. How can they make sure that employees will benefit directly? I hope that the Secretary will give us a clear answer. If it's there to save paper, And if it can save an administrative work, and if administration fees can be reduced, who will benefit? Will the employees benefit? I hope the Secretary can give me a direct and concrete answer. Under the bill, trustees are prohibited from passing on the 0.03% of net asset value of annual registration fee to scheme members. But these approved trustees may set up miscellaneous items to charge scheme members. Scheme members may lose more than they gain in the end. We don't know who will benefit in the end. The MPF authority will set up a wholly owned subsidiary to run the eMPF platform. In December 2018, the government reckoned that they will need about $3.36 billion to develop the system. In May last year, it has been incorporated into the Appropriation Bill 2019 as a non-recurrent allocation. A few months later, in December, the government sought an additional $500 million as additional, $5.3 billion and additional allocation. They said that they need to add more functions to this eMPF platform. The money is only the initial startup cost of the eMPF platform for the first 2 years. This worries me. They can have many different excuses. If you are bent to benefit certain parties, you may come up with hundreds of ways. The example I've cited is a case in point. So, on one occasion, the government wants to get $3.3 billion to set up the platform. And then they ask for another $500 million. And we have yet to see the commissioning of the platform. They have already asked us for close to $4 billion. What will happen next? Who is the government actually helping? That's a huge question. The MPF system started in 2000. They have accumulated over $900 billion. When it started, people heavily criticized it. Now it has built up a treasure trove. But the money doesn't belong to employees. As at end of September 2019, the net asset value of the e-schemes stands at $905 billion. Contribution stands at about $667.8 billion. Investment return is just about $237 billion, covering about 10.2 million accounts. On average, each account will have just about $180,000. There are 50,000 accounts that have a value of over 1 million. Only 50,000 accounts. That is a very small number. We now have COVID-19. The net asset value of the MPF schemes as at March has been reduced to about $868 billion. Of course, investment involves risk, but you have no choice when it comes to the MPF as long as you're an employee. Doesn't the government have the responsibility to make it better? They should not allow it to benefit conglomerates at the expense of employees. The government's been talking about improving the MPF system, but they are all band-aid solutions. There is not one serious reform to protect the investment return of employees. What we need is not patch-up solution. We need a universal retirement protection scheme.
Mr. James Toe. Madam Deputy, testing. Madam Deputy. The setting up of the eMPF platform will improve the situation. The government has spent money on this platform, and yet the trustees will find it more convenient, and so will members of the public. However, because the government has spent money on it, the community hopes that when the trustees or the fund companies have saved costs, then the public really hope that the costs or the fees can be lowered. If the fees cannot be lowered, then the public will challenge these expenses, and the MPFA may set up its own platform using its own expenses. And according to the administration, the authority may not want to do that because of the investment involved, and then the benefits to big and small companies may be different. The e-platform will provide more convenience, but the change in our portfolio or movement of benefits may benefit different trustees to a certain extent. And then large companies don't want to set up such a platform because they already enjoy an advantage over the smaller companies. However, because this is a mandatory system, the government keeps reviewing and improving the situation, not repeat figures already quoted by other members, although my assistant has prepared them for me. Now, let's not call this authority a club for the ex-officials or the high administrative costs, so on and so forth. Now, because the system is mandatory in nature, the government has a heavy responsibility. We're talking about the 4 pillars for retirement protection. At the end of the day, now we all know that after contributing to a scheme for decades, do you really have sufficient savings for your retirement? The government has a role to play, so the government should not just tinker with the system. It should consider, for example, how to lower the administration fees of funds and trustees to a minimum level, to even zero. The benefits accrued will not be able to support your retirement. Even all the pillars together will not provide for a comfortable retirement. Now, the fees are so high And the government has spent a lot of money to improve the system. But a large portion of the expenses are now eaten up by the fund managers. You have to bear in mind that they stand to benefit in any way. So, President, the system has been amended time and again. Has the administration considered that apart from this system, of course, it is impossible for you to abolish the MPF system altogether because there are too much vested interests, and given the large pool of benefits accrued, it would cause volatilities in the financial market if the system is to be scrapped. But apart from the MPF system, would the government consider the possibility of a central provident fund? The government can run a central provident fund, which is very similar to the MPF system. But the government will foot the bill for all the fees and costs, and the government has to top up the various expenses. Now, when the public hear that we're going to discuss the MPF fund again, and that a platform will be set up, and that hundreds of millions of dollars will be spent on it, and if they don't see any improvement, they will ask for indicators. Now, you haven't got any performance indicators that the government would like to achieve. Now, you are just hoping that the trustees will lower fees as a result of assistance you've given them. You have no way to ensure that they can attain some mandatory indicators. So the public are rather helpless. I will not comment on other proposals for the scheme. Rather, you allow me to invest in the tracking fund. So there perhaps there should be a single scheme to be run by the government to invest in the trackers fund. But of course, that alone may not be sufficient because it is rather complicated. But the public would like to have some known benchmarks and with very low fees and with a very certain and clear system. Yes, with this platform, some employees may think that it is good for portability, but then at the end of the day, the difference in fees may not be that big. And we don't expect members of the public to be smart enough to make good use of the platform for changing their schemes and investment funds. In fact, it will even be more risky. So the public have high expectations than what you are proposing here. And the public aren't really that thankful with what you can do with the investment here. And we have no choice but to support you. I believe there are members who don't really want to support your bill at all because eventually we are not sure whether the public can benefit. But of course, this is a kind of subsidy by the government, and who stands to lose or gain is too complicated a situation to find out. They may feel that you're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars for fund companies to set up a platform. I'm sure the public will feel that the government is trying to help the business sector again. Thank you. Does any member wish to speak? Call for quorum, please.
我現在請財經事務及庫務局局長答。
The Secretary will reply, and then the debate will come to a close. Secretary. Thank you, President. I think the common factor between the government and also legislators is to reduce fees, and this bill will allow room for fees to be reduced. This is just the first step, and towards the end of this year, now we will talk about the objective, we'll have the indicator, and also various options for legislative adjustment. And we're discussing with the industry the details. And please allow us time, and we will come back again by the end of this year. Now, members gave us a comparison of the tracking fund and also the MPF schemes. I don't think that is really fair, because for the former is mainly securities. For the latter, it includes money market and also the securities market. So the comparison is not entirely valid. And members talked about the 0.5% administrative fee, and actually the administrative fee only account for not 0.04 to 0.08%, and that would be about 30% of the total amount. Members are concerned as to whether the EMPF platform will be used. In fact, the digital take-up rate will have an impact. Now, take 14th of July's example, 80% of the scheme members are using the electronic services. So by means of support and education, we want to provide an incentive for more people to use the platform. Some members talked about the civil exemption from civil liability. Now, this is not included in the current bill because it involves the operation of the fund. So bear with us, and we'll come back by the end of this year to give you an account of that. Another topic covered today is the ARF, and that is the annual registration fee, how we can ensure that it will not be transferred or passed on to scheme members. You can rest assured the authority will be the gatekeeper, and there will be an audited report to be given. So you can rest assured. Thank you.
And I'll put a question to you that the Mandatory Provident Fund Schemes Amendment Bill 2019 be read the second time. Those in favour, please raise their hands. Just raise hand. Claims a division. The bell will ring for 5 minutes.
開始表決。
Please proceed to vote.
請核對。
Please check your votes. If there are no questions, voting now ends. Display the results. 54 present, 44, 13 against. The question is agreed by a majority of the members who are present. I declare the motion passed. Mandatory Provident Fund Schemes Amendment Bill 2019. This Council now becomes Committee of the Whole Council.